The champions! Do, 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 do. Welcome to your Wednesday, A Celtic State of Mind. My name's Kevin Graham, and what is match day 2 of the UEFA Champions League. And I'm joined by my new teammate on a Wednesday afternoon, John Hughes Jr. John, how are you getting on?
Yeah, not bad, bro. Good to see you, and welcome to all the reprobates, ruffians, rogues, and rapscallions listening in. Hopefully we've got a lot to talk about, and it is match day, as you say, only a few hours to kick off. Absolutely buzzing already. This is an important one, so the adrenaline's going already. So apologies if I speak a bit quickly.
Oh, no problem, John. I mean, it's only me and you today because I've chased another one away, John. I mean, I've chased, that's Colin I've chased away. I've chased away Brian, and now I've eventually chased away V. James. And James is the one that hurts most because I'm related to him, eh? and that hurts most. But James is going to be back on some other time during the week. His university course has started again, so he's actually sitting in a lecture theatre or a classroom or something like that just now, instead of being on. The
good news for you is that even if you do try and chase me, I move quite slowly, so it'll take a while.
Did you watch any of the football last night, John?
No, I watched bits and pieces of Liverpool Ajax, and I tried to watch some of the Bayern Munich and Barcelona, but obviously I missed the relevant bit of the Bayern Munich game, which was the banner they had up at the start.
Aye. So, we'll have a wee talk about the banner, eh? I watched the Liverpool Ajax game. I tell you one thing, that boy Bassett plays for Ajax looks a player, eh? He does actually look a player. I could say that now that he's left these shores.
I saw a bit of him, and I have to agree with you. I mean, he was in a couple of tight spots last night when I was watching, and he managed to get out of them. He also did, thumping it into Rose's head at one point, but for the most part, he didn't look out of place in that team.
No, he didn't look out of place in that team. And also watched Sporting Club de Portugal against Tottenham Hotspur. And that was a game so boring, I nearly turned it over to watch the news, mate. It was absolutely terrible. I didn't care if Spurs supporters can put up with Conte ball, as they actually call it. I mean, you did mention the Bayern Munich supporters there.
Yeah.
The Bayern Munich supporters put up a banner last night in their game against Barcelona, and it says last-minute match delays and bans because of a Royals death. Respect fans. Now, John, I've been very outspoken and vocal on the people who run the Scottish game. My views on them are like, they're like guys who buy avocados who didn't like avocados but buy avocados because their wife tells them to, because they're good for them. They're just complete and utter idiots. The decision at the weekend to cancel the games was just, it was brand protection. That's all it was. I'm not going to get into the whole circus surrounding why the game was cancelled. But the reasoning why it was cancelled was it was brand protection, and they're basically scared of us, the cash cow that they actually milk, and they're scared that we won't keep our mouth shut, and they treat us as a necessary evil, eh? I mean, the amount of guys that have lost money that are paid to come to that game on Saturday, is unbelievable. And it's just another stupid decision. They didn't give a toss about fans. Unless we're giving them money, they're no interest to us. And that's what they've done on Saturday, over the weekend. They've just done it as a brand protection exercise.
Well, that's exactly what it was. It was all about just the optics of the situation. So obviously they were concerned that, working class crowds, for the main, weren't going to react in the way that they wanted them to react. Of course, they made a rod for their own back now, because people have had will have had a full week to get pissed off about all the, the performative mourning. So, and each to their own. Anyway, I'm not, I've got plenty of people that I'm close to who are big fans of the royal family and all. That's fine. I don't have any issue with that. You do you. but it's, this forcing it on everyone else. And it was a pure panic measure, absolute panic measure. They just waited to see what the English did, as far as I could see. So as soon as the English made a decision. But then, of course, the sports in England, they couldn't afford to fob off all their fans and lose that income. They went ahead. So you had, on the Saturday, I think I tweeted, well, I'm looking forward today to watching English rugby. If I want to lose the will to live, I might watch English cricket. Maybe I'll go shopping, could go for dinner, could go for drinks. But I'm obviously far too sad to watch Scottish football. So that was the nonsense of it. But look, they made a bad decision. They panicked. They made it quickly, but it's no real surprise. Well, even I was listening to one of the rugby podcasts, and the 2 games that were cancelled on the Friday night, that's cost them hundreds of thousands. The clubs that were involved in that, all the corporate hospitality, all that money coming through the door, and they're far more reliant on that sort of money than football is. So they lost hundreds of thousands, and they're not happy. And then, the teams that weren't playing on the Friday night were vociferous about these other 2 teams, having to not play. So, because it advantages them if the other ones lose out on that cash. But anyway, separate issue. But I mean, it's the nonsense of, as you say, all the small businesses that are peripheral to these industries, to all that football, all the wee shops that make money out of it, all of the fans, the flights, the ferries, the buses, the bookings, all of that. I mean, you're talking all over. I mean, tens of thousands of people will have been inconvenienced there. You're not getting money back on cancelled flights. That's what we know. I mean, and the same with all these other bookings. So, if you look at all the supporters buses coming across, unless they book flexible tickets, which are 5 times the amount, they're not getting that money back. So it's just,
I know,
the concern with the optics was so overwhelming. That's all they were thinking about, was concerned with how it looked. They didn't think for a second about the actual customers, about the people who pay them, who go at these games, who fund the game in Scotland. They didn't think for a second about that, not a second. All they're concerned about was, how's it going to look? It'll make us look bad if someone says something. You know what? Despite the fact that lots of people have been arrested, last time I looked, we live in a democracy. So, if people want to say, something that's not in line with mainstream thinking of the moment, or at least as the media would have us believe, then they're entitled to do that. That's just tough, because if it's not illegal, then they're entitled to do it. So, I don't, this notion, and they've made it, as I say, they've made it odd for their own bags now, because, I mean, for a start, we've now got a minute silence in our game tonight. Now, why? Why are we doing that? And, why are we insisting on minute silences at all, when you know that they won't be respected, not just with us, but with loads of, even Hearts couldn't respect a minute silence, right? And that's saying something. So you have to consider the way you choose to show respect, right? And if a minute silence won't cut it, do something else. Why are you setting yourself up to fail? And it will fail, and it will probably fail across the board. So why set yourself up to fail? There's loads of ways you can show respect. They can wear black armbands. The club could put something on beforehand. They could do 100 different things. Why the minute silence? It's just madness. If you're worried, you're cancelling games because of the optics. Cancel the minute silence, and there won't be any optics. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, for me, it was the wrong decision, mainly because of what had done to the travelling fans. At that point, you've also got your argument against free speech, because some of us would maybe go against what's meant to be in the national psyche, or what the BBC are telling us what the national psyche is at the moment, when they're following the Queen's coffin about like she's a Just Eat driver or a Deliveroo driver or something like that. When they would go against us, there'll be some folk will speak out against it, the national psyche. Me personally, if they ask me to go and stand for a minute silence for an institution I've got no respect for whatsoever, I don't believe that we should have, I've got nothing against them personally, I just didn't believe in the institution, then I would stand outside. I wouldn't take part in it. I wouldn't go and protest against it. I would just not take part in it. But that's just me. But it brings in this whole thing. It brings us this whole thing again. What's the politicisation of football, and it seems to be football's good for politics at sometimes, but other times it's no good for politics, and they need to stop being hypocrites when it comes to stuff like this.
It's sensitive issues, but it is. I mean, there is immediately the hypocrisy of, we don't want to get the political side, but I mean, everyone knows this. The hypocrisy of everyone with Ukraine flags in support of Ukraine, and yet we're not allowed to support Palestine or any other cause, because that doesn't fit the narrative of the moment. So yes. It's the politics that are good and the politics that are bad are decided by UEFA. So it's not that politics shouldn't be involved in sport, it's that politics they don't approve of shouldn't be involved in sport. So that's a very different thing. And once it becomes subjective rather than objective, then you have a problem, because lots of people feel very, very strongly about different matters. And if you're saying no, you can't do any of that, then that's fine. You can't do any of that. But this includes what's happening now. You can't do any of that either. So, whether that's Ukraine or anything else that's happened recently, if we're not doing politics, then don't do them. Just don't do them at all. That's fine. And I think everyone can get behind that. I
stop being hypocrites about it. Stop saying something's good and something's bad. That's allowed and this is not allowed. Yeah. Just get on with it. John, we'll move on because we're in the Champions League tonight. We're in Warsaw. Well, we're not in Warsaw. I'm in my house in Stirling, and you're in your house in wherever it is. I don't know.
Ireland. A very warm welcome from a wee grey Ireland today. It's still a lovely day.
Tonight we're playing Shakhtar Donetsk in Warsaw. Yeah. Obviously for political reasons that we're playing in Warsaw. Very big political reasons. Yeah. I'm going to call Shakhtar Donetsk the widos of this group after match day 1. Yeah. The reason that I believe they're the widos of the group after match day 1 is, well, one, they're owned by a Russian oligarch whose main aim was to make Shakhtar Donetsk the Chelsea of the East. Right away, that makes them widos in my point, in my view. Secondly, they hammered Leipzig and caused them to sack their manager, which means that they are now a very much unknown quantity, which could be rejuvenated. and because they have got a decent squad, John, they have got a decent squad, and that was proven at the weekend when they bet Dortmund 3-0. They can get the dead cat bounce, as it's called, with a new manager coming in. And also, Shakhtar are widos in this group because they've got 3 points that they didn't expect to get. And after the 2 games after this, they've got a double header against Real Madrid. So they're looking at us now going, by the way, if we get 6 points, this double header against Madrid doesn't really matter. We've put ourselves in the boxcar seat to actually qualify for this group, either for the Europa League or second place in the group. I hate them. They're widos. I wanted Real Madrid to be widos. I didn't want Shakhtar to get that result. I wanted that to be I wanted it to be a nice 1-1 draw or something like that. But they've chucked a grenade in amongst the pigeons here with that result last week. And it's very difficult to tell what Celtic are going to face tonight because it's a load of unknowns, really.
Well, I think I mentioned before, I posted something in the group a while ago. If you look at Shakhtar, the club at the moment, you have to start with what's happening with the club because that impacts on what's happening with the team. So Shakhtar is currently suing UEFA for €50 million because on the 30th of June, UEFA said that foreign players in particular can suspend their contracts until 30th of June 2023. Now, they had 4 guys in negotiations over their contracts. They're top men, actually. At least 2 of them were the top men anyway. And they immediately withdrew from those negotiations because their contracts finish before 30th of June 2023. So they've gone on loan with no compensation to Shakhtar two clubs like Fulham or elsewhere, and then their contracts are going to run out, and Fulham is going to sign them for nothing. The other clubs are going to sign them for nothing, and there's £50 million worth of value there. So that caused me to go and have a wee look. They currently have 17 players on loan. 4 of them are worth between 2.7 to 9 million. 3 of them are worth 15 to 20 million. So you've got to say there's got to be, that's 7 possibly first teamers, of which you've got to be 4 or 5 of them must be starters at that sort of value. Now, the rest of those players are Ukrainian players who are probably sent out on loan to keep the wage bill down. But they are missing, you've got to assume, like 7 of their top players. That's going to impact us in terms of them getting some sort of, us having some sort of advantage from them playing in Warsaw. Well, they've not played a home game since 2014.
Aye.
So, Donetsk is in the Donbass, and the Donbass was taken over by Russian separatists in 2014. So they've been playing their home games in Kiev. So they are essentially a homeless club. They're wanderers. So, there's going to be no advantage to us. And the other thing as well, the only thing that's potentially an advantage to us going forward, not in this game, but going forward, as I'm watching I went back and looked at their games this year so far, and it brought back so many horrible memories because they're empty stadiums and you can hear the coaches shouting, and it just, that shiver it gave me just remembering COVID and the lockdown and all, and, in the season that we had in particular, it was, it really gave me I had PTSD. I was looking at it going, can hear everyone shouting, stop it. No, but they were, so that's the stadiums that they're playing in. So perhaps when they come to Celtic Park, we can scare the life out of them. But in terms of us going over there to play, no advantage at all. The real advantage we have is their squad, well, I wouldn't say decimated, but certainly very close to that. So, well, it's like, 7 players was decimated, used to kill 1 man in every 10 in the Roman legions. So, it's close to it. But we should have the advantage, and that impacts what's happening on the pitch, Kev. But, I know you have a point to make there a bit before we come to what's happening on the pitch.
Aye, I think last week, 8 of the starting 11 in Leipzig actually came from Donetsk's academy. So what you've got to actually say is the players there have never played in Donbass. They will all be from the Kiev region. They'll all be brung through that's where the training camp and all of that was. I think they've moved 3 stadiums since they moved for the Donbass in 2014. I think they've played in 3 stadiums, and tonight's the first time that they're going to play in Warsaw. I don't think it's going to make a difference to them. I think they've developed they're like a nomadic team. I don't think playing in Warsaw is going to be that. It's not going to be a normal home tie for them, even though the majority of the crowd are going to be with them because of what's happening in the Ukraine. They've also sort of painted themselves now as a Ukrainian team, which is quite funny when they're owned by a Russian oligarch who was friends with Putin. And they've signed quite a lot of Ukrainian players because there's a big pride issue with Ukrainian players going back. They're a homegrown Ukrainian side, and they've got the poster boy for Ukrainian football in Mudryk, who will come on to later. I think they're going to treat this like an away game. I really do think they're going to treat this like an away game, John, because like you, I watched a bit of their highlights and they're devastating on the counter-attack. Utterly devastating on the counter-attack.
Yeah. Well, the managers obviously knows that as well, because he mentioned that I was watching his interview this morning, the pre-game interview, and he said they're going to sit back and try and hit us on the counter. But we are prepared for that, apparently. So it's going to be interesting to see because, obviously I think, our biggest potential weakness is on the counter. So it's going to be interesting to see. But, I have my thoughts on that, Kev, as you know, and I was looking back I mean, do you want to, we go back to the Leipzig game?
Aye,
so basically, I went back to look at all their goals and all their creative options and how they've been playing. So I was watching the highlights from the Ukrainian league games, and then the Leipzig game. So the Leipzig game, you obviously know that Shved scored, an absolute fluke of a goal. I don't know what their goalie was doing there, the one where he lost out. He made Joe Hart look like Pele. It's absolutely shocking. I don't know what he was doing. Like he'd never seen a ball before. Anyway, so Shved robs him. And by the way, in the comments just now, you can all tell me before I come on to this, would Shved have been a success under Ange in this system? So you can comment on that and we'll pick up on it. But so that's fine. And then the Leipzig goal, which we need to come back to at some point, because that's where I think hope was for us. But the other three goals, so the second goal, Mudryk was released on the left, and with his devastating pace and a couple of step overs, he gets a cross into Shved, cross takes a deflection, goes in the back of the net. The third goal, fast counter attack down the right. Leipzig were caught out chasing the game. Mudryk, completely unmarked, on the left. The ball across to him and he finishes just as you'd expect, a great finish. And the fourth goal, a ball into the left channel for Mudryk, right, to be run onto, puts in a beautiful cross across the face of goal, and the ball is tapped in. So, all the highlights, and I encourage everyone to go back and go on YouTube and look at them, the highlights, they're all the same. They're all the same. Everything that they do that's good and creative and isn't just bog standard, sort of farmers football, everything that they do comes through Mudryk. It's playing in Mudryk, it's getting Mudryk on the ball. They are as close to a one-man team as I have seen in a long time. Because watching the highlights when Mudryk went off one time, they only won that goal with like a real scrappy header in the middle of the box. It was a big stramash. So everything, Mudryk takes a set pieces, Mudryk creates most of the, or he's getting in position, So my contention is that we need to shut down Mudryk. If we shut down Mudryk, then I don't think we've got anything to trouble us, anything at all to trouble us.
I think as well, John, the way the Shakhtar manager was talking, he's got Celtic as favourites. He was saying he was playing down last week's results. There's lots of people in the comments. Aidan Barrett, Shakhtar are dangerous on the counter attack, but if we are clinical, then it won't matter. And that's what Gary Melrose comes in. That's the key. They score 4 from 5 chances. We scored 0 for 3. That's true as well. Adam comes in, Shakhtar counter-attacking team, they'll be happy to park the bus. I think you'll maybe see tonight, John, I think you maybe will see that they'll go to maybe try and get an early goal and sit back. They might want to put us under pressure early on and see what actually happens. It depends. As you say, they look like a one-man team. They do look like a one-man team. But they look like a team that's moulded to play around that player. Now, that player, he plays on the left and he's going to be up against Josip Juranovic. And we'll need Josip Juranovic tonight to be on the top of his game to actually stop this player because of the way that Shakhtar are going to play against us.
Yeah, well, I have friends that we argue about the football. And basically, when we're coming up against the Rangers, they were saying, you should pick my head in there and we should do this and we should do that. And again, with Real, we should pick that player to shut them down and all the rest of it. And I kept saying to them, that's not going to happen. Ange picks his best team as he sees it, regardless of who you're playing against. However, I want to be a bit controversial tonight and ask the people in the comments what they would do, because I would be actually tempted to do something radical. I know it's just, I'm throwing it out there. Look, I accept it's not going to happen, but, if it was me, I'd be tempted to do something like play Ralston and Juranovic. Now, he's played there before, but we need to shut him down, that boy Mudryk. If we shut him down, if we're prepared to sacrifice an Abada, right, and maybe some of the good, better service from that side, then, you know, I think we can just kill them at source. You know, but if we let him play, they play. If he doesn't play, if he's not on the ball, if he's not creating anything, they're nothing. To me, they look like a glorified Aberdeen. You know, they've got some decent players. That's a bit harsh, to be fair.
Oh, that could come back to haunt you there, big man. That could come back to haunt you. Somebody's clocked that already.
It's a bit harsh, but anyway, they are everything. The point is, it's an exaggerated point, but the point is it flows through Mudryk. And if we can nullify that source, then I don't think they can beat us. If we can nullify him, I don't think they can beat us. So I would be tempted to do some radical. Now, Ange's just going to play his team, he always does, and you know, all these conversations about tactics are probably worth it. But I'm interested to know what other people think. You know, if it was your choice, would you nullify their one source of creativity, or would you be completely reliant on us playing our game and ignoring what the threats are elsewhere? You know, so I'm interested to see what people are thinking.
I wouldn't be ignoring what the threats. I think, even though Ange Postecoglou always says, I play the way that I want to play and I'm not going to change it, there is game management. Then the game management is completely different, like, than changing their style of play. I mean, it looks like Donetsk changed their style of play completely from Europe to for domestic games. They play quite open and domestically, quite counter-attacking in Europe. What I would actually do, and I'm going to agree, there's a couple of comments coming here, I would play the Japanese Kamatachi in front of him instead of Abada. If we're worried about Mudryk, play Maeda instead of Abada, as he does a lot more work going back, the way Barry McCormick says that. And there's a couple of other, Kaiser HTTC, Jai and Maeda on to neutralise their right winger. I says in the pre-season, John, that I could see this type of role for Maeda in the Champions League because of the amount of work rate that he actually does back. The fact is they're a major danger down their left-hand side, and I think Maeda's speed could actually spook the big fella. Yeah,
but if I was playing Maeda, you know, this is my thoughts, right? And you know, I'm sure people in the comments will be keen to tell me Ange will not do that and Ange will not do this. That's fine. These are my thoughts. I think you know, if you're playing Maeda, I'd play him with the instruction that basically I'd nearly man mark that boy. Do you know what I mean? I'd be close to man marking him. That's how pivotal I think he is to their play. I would sacrifice one of our boys. I you know, nearly man mark him, put him out the game, and then I think they're going to really struggle. You know, or at least zonally. You know, just a real focus on him. Just don't let him get space. Don't let him get space ever. You know, because if he's in space, we're going to lose a goal. You know, they've shown that. They do have, I mean, I was saying they're glorified Aberdeen, but they actually do have some other good players, or Ukrainian internationalists, a lot of them. So, you know, the point is, I don't think they're as good as we are. Without him, I don't think they're as good as we are. But, you know, he is, he's like, for them, he's like Jota, except more important. You know, there's so much goes through him. So anything I think we can do to nullify him, I think wins us the game.
I think so as well, and this is a game that's probably a better measure of where we are than last week's. This is a game that I have a look at. I go, we need to start winning these games against teams of Shakhtar level, like on a consistent, regular basis. I mean, I'm looking at tonight. I'm looking at this group, and I'm going, well, what about 4 points? Take a point tonight and like beat them at Celtic Park. If you got 4 points over like the 2 games against Shakhtar, you go, that's a massive improvement for what we've actually been seeing against a good side who got a decent result last week. But then again, part of me is going like that. This is the night that like I wish that Oliver Abelgard was up to speed. The reason being, is we need that midfielder. You know the type of midfielder. I mean, if you're driving ahead for your work, John, you go to one of these cheap German supermarkets and you go on to get a wee bit of minute steak or something like that for your dinner and a wee oriental mix and that, eh? And you stand in the queue and there's a boy standing in front of you and he's got his mum's short and he's like basket, eh? And his trolley, eh? And he goes like that. He looks at you and he sees that you've only got 2 items. And he smiles at you and he just keeps on loading the belt. He doesn't tell you to go in front of him. That's the type of midfield that we need. And I think Abelgard's got that midfield. It's a Scott Brown type thing where he's not going to care. He's going to do the dirty stuff. He's going to try and wind you up. He wants to do the dirty stuff. I think we might miss a player like that because of the counter-attacking, where you've got that sitting defensive midfielder to go, right, I need to always go out to the left-hand side here because that's where they're actually going to go. And that's my worry. And that's how I think we maybe bring in Abelgard a bit too late. I would like to have seen that type of player brung in earlier in the window and fitted into the Celtic style, because we need that type of player for away games in Europe, I think.
Oh yeah, for sure. In fact, I was just saying, and that's another reason the Livingston game being postponed was a real problem for us, because first of all, I think everyone wanted to see Haksabanovic get a run for the full game, and Abelgard as well. The issue we have with Abelgard is we really need him for Europe, but we don't need defensive midfielders for games in Scotland. So how do we get him up to speed? Do you know what I mean?
I know.
So I mean, what are you going to do? Play him against St Mirren? What does that achieve for us? It's actually a problem about how you get the guy enough minutes. Because he needs to be. He's just like for us. He's just like the guy that plays in Europe. But obviously that's not realistic. But essentially, it's unfortunate our game was postponed. I think both of those boys needed a run out. We could have relied on them tonight. Because I would be very tempted if we go, if we do, our usual from last year. If we get 2 goals up or 3 goals up, I absolutely be changing our tactics. I wouldn't be piling it on. As much as we like to pile on the agony recently, but I wouldn't be piling it on. We need to put those games to bed. We need the win. The win is so important tonight. As you say, Shakhtar, they've ambushed Leipzig. Nobody expected that result. So what you were expecting was potentially, 4 games in, Shakhtar might have no points at all, because if they're playing us, they played Leipzig, you weren't expecting to win that. Playing us, we would expect to win that, and then they're playing Madrid in a double header. So that's basically them out. So this game for us, I think, if we win this tonight, potentially that means football after Christmas. That means we'll definitely be in 3rd place, in my view. So I think this game tonight is so important. And our history with Shakhtar is we played them 4 times. I think we'd won 2, lost 2. We lost the 2 away. We won 2 at home. However, because of all the reasons we've just mentioned about their squad being decimated, about the fact they have one player who is very, very good, but we could potentially neutralise, then I think we need to be confident in this game, especially if we bring the same level of performance as we brought against Madrid in that first half. When we play like that, we have nobody to fear, absolutely nobody to fear. Now, the problem is, of course, trying to maintain that, and we couldn't maintain it. We played that way for 60 minutes, and then that was it. So, I wouldn't expect that. This is not Madrid we're playing. Those are the best players in the world, right? And tonight, if we are caught on the break, they're not definitely going to score. If they get away, they're not definitely going to score. Depending on who's getting away. If they're making 50-yard crossfield balls, then there's as much chance of win to touch, right for a shy as it would be, the thing. So they are absolutely for certain. If you take Mudryk out that side, I would bet on us to win this game 9.9 times out of 10. That's what I think it sits. And I really think, we have to win these games. It's not a matter of, it would be nice if we won it. We absolutely have to, because this is not just a big test for this team. You know, in the last, you know, in previous Champions Leagues, we've never had a draw this favourable, as far as I can remember. I don't remember us ever having a draw like this. So, you know, what are we going to say if we fail here? You know, it's just you know, we're building and it's a process and all the rest of it. No, we're good enough now. You know, and we need to be getting these results now.
I think the two things you say are both true, though, John. We are still building, we are still good enough. But I think the two things do balance each other out. I mean, as I say, this is a more interesting game to see where we actually are in Europe. Steve O'Matt comes in. I just like bringing him in because look at that. Look at his muscles, unbelievable. I'm jealous of their muscles, Let's not rewrite Shakhtar's result. A surprise that tears up the planned script of the group, but they were dominated by Red Bull. Four goals from 5 shots. One was a gift to them. A tough game, but one that we should win.
Yeah.
HISC Tech. Shakhtar can basically clinch second place tonight by beating us, so they will come out the traps hard, but I fancy us in a high-scoring game. Both teams go into this with confidence, but Shakhtar go into this with a wide confidence because they've got 3 points, and that completely changes their mentality. I agree with HISC there that they're having a look at this going, we didn't expect to be in this position. We've now got a home game, and I've done the air quotes for anybody that's listening audio later on. They've now got a home game against the weakest team in the group. We did come out of pot 4, so we are the weakest team in the group, according to the UEFA rankings in this group. So they're looking at it going, we've got a chance to get 6 points here. They've got a chance to get 6 points, and they probably didn't think that when the group kicked off. And we're going into it on a high of playing well for 54 minutes against Real Madrid. But tonight we're going into a completely different game. And for me, tonight's game is more a measure of where we are in this trajectory of Ange Postecoglou's reign.
Yeah, I agree. And I think where we are is better than Shakhtar. I think where we are is hopefully better than Leipzig as well, depending on we're starting to turn things around immediately. But you know, I look, you're not going to get. I mean, while we're in pot 4, you know, we're not going to get an easier team than this. You know, I know it's terrible to say, and it can back and bite us, and tomorrow we've lost 3-0 or whatever, or lost 2-0. I don't care. You know, because the fact that these are the facts. The facts are we will not get an easier team than this. A team who's, you know, you couldn't even call it in transition. A team whose squad has been wrecked. So, you know, when we played them before, actually, Shakhtar, they were a good side. You know, they were a properly good side. They had all the oligarch money behind them. Poor fella, I think he's down his last few billion now, unfortunately.
Well, he lost 3.7 billion when the Russians invaded, when his pal Putin invaded.
The steel plant they were holding.
He owned that,
He owned that, so he's lost a few billion. Poor guy, I don't know how he's going to manage. So, you know, he actually puts his money in, unlike our chairman, I think. Not chairman, sorry, owner. But you know, I think, you know, from our point of view, does it get any better than this? Who are we going to face? You pick me one other team that's not from pot 4, right? Who we could face that we'd be in a better position going into this game, right? Yes, they had a fluke result, and it was a fluke result. I don't know what Leipzig were doing, but it was a fluke result. But here, I can come back for a bit of context, right? Leipzig's goal. If you watch Leipzig's goal, I had to go back and watch it half a dozen times because I couldn't get my head around what had happened. And I kept thinking, I've missed something here. That's a bit weird. I've just missed something. Because what happens is the ball comes from the centre half to the midfielder. It's one pass, but either on the left-hand side. It's one pass down the left through the middle. The boy's about 15 yards outside the box. He's a runner on his left, and he's an unmarked man on his right. He plays it to the unmarked man. The boy swats it home, and I kept looking back. I see you're not, right? So I have a screenshot, and at the point that the Leipzig player makes that pass to the right, there are seven Shakhtar players round him, right? Including the right back. The entire team just chased the ball as if it was kids' football, right? So I watched it back again and thought, something must have happened before that initiated that pulled them all out of position. There must have been something there that's coming from a counter-attack. It's pulled their left back out of position. Something's happened. No, they all just ran to that side, and left the boy completely unmarked in the middle. So from our point of view, in terms of, rather than talking about the dangers of Shakhtar, and from our point of view, that goal was great to see.
It was a very Celtic-like goal with the movement that Leipzig done. The way that we've played football under Postecoglou, it was a very Celtic-like goal. And as you say, when I saw it as well, the first thing I went, aye, wait a minute, they got ripped open there. And we've now got the ability to do that. We have now got the front three and the attacking ability and the tactical plan where we can actually do that to teams in a European level. I mean, we did create a couple of chances against Real Madrid last week, and that's Real Madrid. I'm going to agree with Cherry Bombs here. I don't know who's on his avatar. You'll need to tell me. 9 points needed to go through, 7 to take third. I would take 7 now. I would bite. If somebody says to me just now, Kevin, I'm going to come into your house and give you 7 points, and you're going to finish third in this group, and you're going to have European football after Christmas. I would take those apples, mate. I would take them.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, I would. Yes, of course. Given our recent history in Europe, you would have to say that. But I'm an eternal optimist. Which it completely isn't true, by the way. I'm only ever optimistic about Celtic. But, I am optimistic about Celtic, and I think that we are better than both of these sides. So, the sides that we are genuinely in competition with, I think we can get enough points. I certainly think we can get enough points to go third. I think if we win this game tonight, we take third, right? So then it's down to the double header with Leipzig as to where they finish in the group, right? So then you're talking about winning to Leipzig, potentially drawing one with Leipzig. So again, it's going to be tight. It's still going to be tight, regardless. There's going to be no easy games here. I know it's an absolute cliche, but I'm saying I think we're better. That doesn't mean they're not a very, very good side. It doesn't mean Leipzig are not a very, very good side. I think we're a very good side as well, but I believe that we're better, but I'm not trying to say that the opposition aren't. These are quality teams, However, I believe fate has handed us an excellent chance against Shakhtar, one that we wouldn't normally have had because it had been packed full of Brazilians. They've got, £50 million worth of players. Are they playing elsewhere? No. So, it's a fair chance, and I don't think if we lose this or we don't get a result here, I don't think there's anywhere to hide from that because it just isn't good enough. The
other thing that you've got to, even when they've heard those Brazilians and the changes in that, John, this is probably the last year that the Ukrainian sides are going to get the Ukrainian champions straight into the Champions League because of the coefficient, because their performances have been dreadful over the last 5 years. Now, again, Celtic can't talk about performances in Europe over the last 5 years, but we have to grasp at any straw. I have to grasp at any straw when we're playing an away game in Europe. We'll talk about the team that we maybe like to see, but I'm going to bring up Paul's in the background. Acsom is going live at Gracie's on the 20th of January. We have a Celtic legend on stage with us, but tickets are already going quick. Tickets are available on the link underneath. So if you're on YouTube, click on it, and it's 15 quid. And if it sells out, I will only appear. I will only be anywhere near it. So there you go. If you didn't want me to appear on the stage at Gracie's, sell this.
Paul's a nice guy, but I think, it's a bit, maybe a wee bit generous of him to describe me as a Celtic legend and only my second podcast.
Aye, well.
No, it's not me, don't worry. You're not paying 15 quid to see me. But you pay 15 quid not to see me.
No, that's what I say. Sell it out and I will only appear. You're buying a ticket to stop me appearing on stage. See? That's for the good of the world, that. Durban, Coolshay, bring Acsom Roadshow to the West Island. Once I'm allowed out the country, Urban, I'll come. No problem. Once I'm allowed out. The team tonight, in goals is Joe Hart. No hang me. Right back, Josip Juranovic. Or you going Tony Ralston? Are you chucking your curveball, Tony Ralston? Are you chucking your curveball, Tony Ralston in there?
I'm trying to be controversial here. Well, I'm trying to be controversial, but I'm just trying to make the point. You know, I know it's most people just think that's stupid, but I really am just trying to stick with that point because I think if we lose this game, we lose it because of Mudryk. So for me, I'd seriously be thinking about Ralston and Juranovic. But the reality is, if we're talking about the team that I think is going to appear, no, Juranovic is playing at right back. So, that's a different thing. We're going to need some game from big Carter Vickers tonight. Well, Carter Vickers is a love child of an irresistible force and an immovable object, isn't he? So, we're hoping that he will fill spaces faster than expanding foam tonight. And hopefully, Mudryk won't get away from him because, I'd like to be saying after this game, you get more chance of escaping from Alcatraz than from big CCV. So, we're looking for him to have an incredibly good game tonight because Jens is next to him. And Jens, to be fair, has looked good as well, hasn't he? So, given the fact he was thrown into that Madrid game, he didn't look out of place at all, big Jens.
No, he didn't. So that's a partnership there because Big Starfelt is out till after the international break, I think was confirmed yesterday by Ange Postecoglou. So you've got Cameron Carter-Vickers, you've got Maurice Jens as the two centre-half partnership. Left back's Greg Taylor. Again, it's another big night for Greggy boy.
Yeah, it is a big night for Greg. And, and he has been playing well, generally speaking, apart from that third goal last week, but he's been playing well, generally speaking. But I am absolutely delighted that their danger is on the other side because their danger is all pace, right? And Greg Taylor has played tremendously and he fits into the system well. But the one thing you can't coach, the one thing you can't give him, that God didn't bless him with, was pace. So I still have flashbacks to the Bodo Glimt game when their big blonde fella, very much like the blonde fella we're going to have tonight, was just ghosting past him. Now, everyone was shocking that night, but I think at this level, if there's someone with significant pace, I would be very worried about him facing Greg Taylor. Now, again, Taylor played well last week against two excellent players on the Madrid side and made one mistake. The mistake cost us a goal, but this is Madrid. So, this isn't, that's not Shakhtar. So I don't expect Greg to have much trouble tonight. The pressure for me is all on Juranovic. Juranovic has to play a blinder tonight, an absolute blinder. And I don't mean offensively, I mean defensively. I'd be saying to him, don't go anywhere near the halfway line. Just sit you back, son. Don't go anywhere near the halfway line. We need to snuff out any chance of this boy getting behind us. And for me, we win the game. Who'd you play in the midfield? The same?
See, this is where my controversial one comes in, eh? My controversial one comes in. I would play Aaron Moy, Callum McGregor, and Rio Atati. I would play Moy as a defensive midfielder. I think we need a more defensive midfielder, even though Callum McGregor was utterly fantastic last week against Real Madrid. I don't know. My concern, and I had this concern last season, and it's still here. I just think we've brought in the big Danish boy Abelgard too late, and this would be a perfect game for him. I still think
you would have Moy instead of McGregor.
No, I'll put McGregor further forward.
Okay. So who are you dropping there? Sorry, Kevin, I missed
O'Reilly.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's one thing. I haven't taken to Moy yet. I know a lot of people have. I haven't taken to Moy yet. So, you know, my argument with Moy before the Dundee United game was that he's basically just coming on, he's making himself available, and then he's pinging 4-yard passes back and forward with the centre halves, never turned forward, he's back to goal the whole time. That doesn't make you a midfield general. That doesn't make you in control of the game. That just means you're abdicating responsibility to your centre halves to distribute the ball. Didn't like him up to that point. He came on in the Dundee United game, admittedly, I don't know, what was it, 7-0 at the time or 6-0, whatever. But then he did face forward, he did start pinging passes about, and you could see he's got real talent, you know. So that annoyed me even more because you're like, this man is, you know, standing, he's back to goal, you know, passing to Jens and passing to big Carter Vickers, 4-yard passes and then running away and getting into space and doing the same thing again. You know, if you want to be a midfield general, take control of the game. You know, take the game by the scruff of the neck, actually make something happen. You know, it's not enough to say, you know, he was there to, you know, dictate the pace of play and all the rest of it. That's not helping us, not at the pace that we play at. And, you know, I don't think, you know, abdicate responsibility of centre halves either, you know, is taking control of the game. I don't think it is, because eventually they're going to make the pass and it might get there, it might not. Right? I think that for me, Moy needs to show a bit more testicular fortitude. You know, he needs to show a bit more guts and taking the game, because I wouldn't have said that before. I would have said I just didn't think he was particularly good. But then he showed us he was good. He showed us he has you know, he can pick a pass. I mean, a couple of these passes in that United game were sensational. You know, so you know that annoys me even more that, you know, he's got the talent and he's not showing it. Show us something, man. Show us something. You know, have a bit of guts. Turn around. Take control of the game. So for me, no, it wouldn't be Moy. I love our midfield, actually. I thought our midfield were absolutely brilliant last week. I thought Callum McGregor, how many kilometres did he run? 13 and a half or something?
13 and a half, aye.
Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. McGregor's a machine. And for me, the biggest concern always is what happens if something happens to McGregor, because, you know, we keep talking about all the players round about McGregor. For me, McGregor makes everything tick. He's absolutely brilliant. I love him. You know, and I think he's good in the position that he's in. I don't see, there's not enough there for me to change anything in our midfield. I thought our midfield were very good last week. Hatate, I mean, come on. One of those passes last week was legendary. People will be talking about that for years. So, you know, the crossfield on the volley from the throw-in. So, it's just sensational. Andy had, generally speaking, a great game. O'Reilly wasn't quite as effective, I'll give you that, but he's still a great player. He is a wand of a left foot. You know, his left foot's such a wand that, you know, it's potentially so magic that Paul Daniels' estate will be suing him for, you know, infringement. You know, so, you know, in a game like this, where there's going to be more space, we're going to have more possession. No, I'm very happy with the midfield. I don't think, you know, if you were going to change that midfield, I would have changed it for Madrid. If we're going to make it more defensive, I would have made it more defensive for Madrid. I wouldn't be making it more defensive for these. You know, so I think that ship has sailed. I think we, you know, after sitting here for the last near hour saying we need to concede that they have a player, we need to mark out the game, I'm also saying that we cannot sacrifice all the best bits of us to suit them. You know, so I agree with Angel as much as and I look, Angel's going to do, you know, well, everything I've said is just, you know, it's just for the sake of chatting and just what I would be thinking about, because you know what Angel do. Angel put out his best side as he sees it. I think his only potential concession might be Maeda, but even then, and I think that's only because that's not a tactical thing. I think that's because Abada did not play well last week, really. You know, once you go back and look at the stats and watch the game again, I mean, he didn't go past his man on any occasion, as far as I know. Lost 85% of his duels, missed a couple of good chances. But then, if we've learned anything at all from the Madrid game, yes, we can take confidence from that first half. Yes, that's absolutely no bother, but we must take our chances. And that's what the issue with Maeda is for me, because, you know, as I said last week, I don't care how long you've been on the pitch, you know, for a minute. You're a striker at a top club, standing 2 yards out of goal, the ball's hit straight to your feet, and, you know, you spin and you hit it off your own standing leg. Not good enough. Not good enough. I know we can all say, oh, you know, strikers miss chances and all the rest of it. Yes, they do. But at this level, that chance, you know, I've got a lot more sympathy for Abada. His chances were much harder. You know, but Maeda, that's a problem for me. He could be brilliant. He could get into all sorts of positions and then just not finish them.
I do think that we spoke at length last week about Maeda's miss, and it's a bad miss. That is a really bad miss, and it's a level of chance that you've got to take in Europe. But it's also, I mean, you look at Shakhtar, they had 4 and they didn't miss any of them. They were very, very clinical. And Ange Postecoglou spoke about that as well. Nobody's agreeing with my midfield choices in the middle of the park. Nobody at all. Ian Matheson's no, Kev, no. Underwater cabbage salesman, mighty defender, devastated counter-attack, Kev at Acsom. With respect, nonsense. You might be right, mate. That's why I didn't pick the team. That's why I didn't pick the team. And Stephen Kenny, Kev, behave yourself, man. Thanks, Steve. Or Cherry Bomb comes in and says, it's him that's playing the guitar. Nice, mate. We need to check you out. We need to actually check you out. You've already mentioned that you think Maeda will come in for the front three. My front three is Maeda, Jota and Kyogo. The reason that I'm going with Kyogo is, again, I think he's built for these European nights. I really do. Even though it's harsh on Big Giacomakis for last week, but I think Kyogo is better away from home in Europe. He's just got more of a maybe skill set.
Well, you know, I know it's controversial to say this, but as it is, I mean, the one thing you don't want to do in social media, apparently, when it comes to Celtic, is give an opinion on a player, because it doesn't matter, you know. If one of them come on with a peg leg, you'd still have guys saying that his turn of pace was absolutely fantastic. So, you know, I think there's no question about this. I thought that last week, you know, the big man schooled Militao a wee bit. He made him go off at half time, as I say. I wait to complain to his mammy. So the big man schooled him. But, you know, we create the potential for so many more chances exists with Kyogo, because Kyogo is so quick of thought indeed. I mean, if they asked Kyogo into Mastermind, they'd turn up 2 days early. Do you know what I mean? He's that fast. So, you know, I love the big man. I love Big GG. I think he's a fantastic player. But you're not comparing apples with apples, basically. And for me, Kyogo gives us so much more, because the ball's through. You play balls into the channel, you know, and Kyogo's away. You know, his finishing for me is excellent. I mean, that one he nearly scored last week off his thigh. I think he gives us a lot more. Now, a lot of people say that, you know, he's not physical enough and he's easy to defend against in GG because of that. That's true. But for me, his pluses outweigh his minuses. And I think, as you pointed out last week, Kev, last week was the first time I've seen Big Giacomakis contribute anything significant outside the box. Aye. That's why the statisticians don't like him, especially for Europe, because he doesn't give us enough outside the box. And that's fine in Scotland, because we don't need him to, you know, but we can't be having passengers, you know. So if we're in a game where we're not going to have as much of the ball, the chances are going to be few and far between. We're not going to be in the box as often as we are domestically. Then for me, it has to be Kyogo all day, every day.
That has to be, in Jota's a given, eh? Jota's a given to start, eh? That's like, he was brought to play on nights like this. Alan Robertson, and we mentioned this last week, Alan, quite a lot, Johnny. Abada's only 20 to learn. It looked like he was a bit spooked last week, and that's fair play. Fair play to him. I mean, if I was on that park at 46-year-old, I'll be spooked. Never mind at 20 playing against Real Madrid. Eh? So
I made exactly this point last week, and just for the benefit of people that didn't hear that, I'll make it again. Abada is learning in real time, you know, in the first team. He's not away on loan. We haven't punted him out the door to hope he comes back a better player. He's doing his learning on the pitch in full view of everyone. He's a very, very good player. He'll be a much better player. He had not a great night last week, and that's fair enough. You know, but his great night, look, if he had an off night, he's 20-year-old, he had an off night against the best team in the world. You know, do we care? You know, is it that big a deal? You know, there's I just might well start him again. You know, I mean, I
might well.
Because he definitely is a more clinical finisher than Maeda. There's no question of that. No question of that. So, you know, Ange may well just stick with what worked before, except that the wee man had a bad night last week against the best team in the world currently. So, you know, I think it's potentially all guns blazing for us tonight, Kev. I'm absolutely buzzing. Cannot wait. It's only a few hours away for kickoff. One of the hoops.
Everybody in the comments as well was buzzing. John Lubo Maestro, no Kev, aim for setting. Ange will be thinking the same. Ange is probably thinking that he can top the group, and that's the kind of thing that we actually want. Ian McGonigal comes in to tell us that the under-19s got beaten the youth against Shakhtar under 19s. We had more shots, etc., but they were 2-0 up with a bit of luck. We will win tonight. Hail, hail. Let's have a wee look at the other comments. That's that thing me. Alex Burrell with my man Keeney on. Will I be peering at Acsom live with my man Keeney on? Alex, that's one of the things that I should have thought and not says out loud, because it's now become a thing, me and a man Keeney. I'm actually back for the match day tonight, and I will only have a man Keeney on during the match day tonight. So you'll be fine with the match day hangway. Adam, this was an early comment. If Celtic lose, the anxiety of the cheap seat opinions will kill me. I've got a very cheap seat, and my opinions do kill everybody, Adam, because sometimes they're that bad. Frank Kennedy, hiya Frank, a wido calling people widos. Aye, but then Big Red puts him right. Aye, but Kev's a good wido. Thank you, Big Red. Thank you, big man.
Just wrap up there. I just want to two things. I was reading something the other day from Vince Lombardi. It said we will be relentless in our pursuit for perfection. We won't ever be perfect, but in the process we will achieve greatness. And that's what we need tonight. We need a perfect, persistent, pitiless performance of passion, pace, precision, power and purpose for a phenomenal, pivotal victory. That's what we need. One hoops.
I'll leave the last comment with Kaiser HTTC. This is the day that we win away. And I'll speak to you all later. Remember, I'll see you back here for the match day. Remember, keep it Celtic and dinna be bams to each other. See you all later.